Hey everybody, welcome again to Lessons with Troy. In today's lesson, I'm going to be focusing on A minor, more specifically A natural minor, and we'll be going over this diagram and I'll go over the jam track that comes with it. But this lesson actually goes good with another lesson that's already up on my site. Let me show you what that looks like. This one, A minor, C, G7 ideas for LapSteel and Open D. And this one, that's, like I said, already up on the site. This one is more about chords and double stops and using the benders. And the lesson that I'm doing today is going to be more about scales, like these nice tight patterns, movable scale shapes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go over neck one, these movable scale shapes, and then neck two. This is actually a really good way to think of the scale as well, where you're just playing it on individual strings. So let's go ahead and dive on into this, and I'll talk about the colors and the numbers and why even do this in A minor and the benefits. Okay, so first off, let's break this down into starting here first, this open, just the red pattern first, right? And as you see, this isn't necessarily, the red isn't necessarily a full scale, but this is how I'd like for you to start thinking about this. Thinking about this fifth string is real nice because the fifth string is really useful in open D tuning. Sometimes the sixth string can be kind of floppy, and not so useful. So a lot of times I think of the fifth string as being tighter and real useful, and especially when you're playing in the key of A or A minor, it's real nice to have that as your root notes. So let's look at this pattern right here, and let's start by just looking how the whole steps, half steps fall. Whole steps means you have 2 frets but 1 fret in between it. Half steps are 2 frets right next to each other. Right, so we start off with the root. R means root. Open fifth string. Second is the second of the scale, so that's a major second. And then when we go up a half step, that flat 3, what that means, all these flat numbers and all that, what that means is if you took a regular A major scale and you altered it to make it an A natural minor scale, the notes that you would change are these notes in red here. Where you wouldn't have your normal major third, you'd move it back a half step, move it back 1 fret, a flatted third, do the same to the 6th of the scale, do the same to the 7th of the scale, and what that formula gives you is that gives you an A natural minor scale. The other thing that gives you is if you say, well, I want to play in the key of C, but I don't know my patterns on there. Well, all these notes in A natural minor, those are the exact same notes in the key of C. The key of C is like on the piano where you have all white keys, right? No sharps or flats. And A natural minor and C major, they're relative to each other. C major is the relative major to A natural minor. A natural minor is the relative minor to C major. So that's a lot of theory stuff. Let's keep going with just these colors, the shapes, and the patterns at first, right? So just think about this as these two shapes, they're just the same, right? Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So we go root, second, flat third, go up to your 4th string, the 4th of the scale, the 5th of the scale, the flat 6th. So just work with that pattern, get that memorized, use it, with the jam track. Now we're going to immediately move up here to this great blue pattern here. This is a really nice movable pattern. This red pattern's not so movable because we're using open strings, right? You can move it, but the benefit of this one in A minor is that we're using those open strings. So we move to this blue pattern now, and it starts on that flat 7, 5th fret. And keep in mind on this diagram, here's your tuning, here's your frets. Okay. And so notice too how this blue is just like this blue. Okay, this green is just like this green. Now, why did I not put the red right there? Just because I want you to think about this as being more open. You do have the same notes on your 12th fret, 14th fret, 15th fret, right? But what I'm wanting to do is to simplify it, not put too much information on the neck to where you just think about a few nice movable patterns that you can use. So let's dive into this blue one here. Now let's start this one actually going down, because sometimes with these nice closed position patterns, it's nice to play them backwards, because that's easier because your bar, the tip of your bar is up, and as you come down the strings, you're not getting it hung up, right? You can just drag your bar down to the next string. So we got root, 7th fret. Slide it down to the flat 7 of the scale, 5th fret. Now, here's the tricky part of this pattern here, is jumping from root, flat 7, all the way here to 8th fret for your flat 6. So that's a real big jump there that you got to kind of get used to. What you want to do technically is just keep your bar tilted up and just kind of drag it diagonally down to that flat 6. Root. Now keep in mind, these numbers don't have anything to do with the frets. They're the scale degrees. Here's your fret numbers. So we're thinking about this as the intervals of the scale. And you'll start hearing that, and you'll start thinking about this too, the more you think about all these scales and numbers, right? So root, flat 7, flat 6. We got that nice half step between the 5th and the flat 6. Whole step between 5 and 4. Flat 3, 2, root, flat 7. Now what you're going to start seeing here is patterns that happen between the spacing between these intervals, right? Notice how it's always a half step between the flat 6 and the 5th. Okay, let's move to this one that we already did. It's a half step between the flat 3rd and the 2nd. Okay, see how that goes? Whole step between the root to the flat 7. Whole step between the 5th to the 4th. Okay, so think about that. When you're playing the scale, think about how all these shapes look, the spacing, and how different things that repeat, right? So when you're thinking about like where your roots are, as you go up the scale patterns, you should, when you hit the 2nd, you should think, oh, the flat 3rd is right next to the 2nd, right? But the 4th to the 5th has a fret in between. The flat 7 to the root has a fret in between. And the more you do that, and also down here when we get into just the single string, that's really apparent, the spacing between the intervals, right? Okay, so there's the blue pattern, and we just practice that. Bring it back to the root. Now you can always hit a nice A power chord here, going root, 5th, root, just these strings 6, 5, 4. But if you want to keep bringing it down another octave, what you do is when you get to this flat 7, then keep going. Flat 6, 5th, 4th, flat 3rd, 2nd, root. Let me do it. That would be a 2-octave scale, right? Here's your 1 octave. There's your next octave. So starting here, root, flat 7, flat 6, 5th, 4th, flat 3rd, 2nd, root, flat 7, flat 6, 5th, 4th, flat 3, 2, root. Now you can start combining these two patterns, and that's how I practice this, at least. Just starting real simple, going back and forth with the red, getting the blue, and then trying to combine these two patterns. Here we go. Okay, just make sure you hit these open strings too. I missed an open string there. Okay, now we have the green pattern. And once again, notice how these patterns repeat up the octave. Same shapes. 5th fret, 7th fret kind of shape is 17th, 19th fret shape here. Here between the 9th and 12th fret is way up here, 21 and 24. Okay, now the other thing I really want to point out to you is to think of these, where the root notes are of each pattern. Notice how the root of this pattern is on your 5th string. The root of this pattern, the blue pattern, is on your 4th and your 1st string. And the roots of the green pattern is on your 5th string and 2nd string. Okay, so let's try to play this. Let's play it backwards again like we did before. Root, flat 7, flat 6, 5th, go diagonally 4th, flat 3rd, 2nd, root. Here we go. Now you'll notice when you're in open D tuning and you're just playing between these strings, you don't get that floppiness of playing individual scale tones on your 6th string. So I find it's real nice to really play these all the way down to your 5th string patterns, and you can really use that 5th string for its usefulness for not being too floppy, right? Okay, then you just play those again, up the octave. But like I said, I'm keeping this real simple, just nice, tight, movable patterns here. Well, let's jump down to this neck. And what we're going to do is we're doing the scale, right? But we're doing it on single strings. So now you can really look down at your LapSteel and you can see these interval shapes, how the root, 2nd, flat 3rd. Look at that spacing. Whole step, half step. Flat 3rd to 4th, whole step. 4th to 5th, whole step. 5th to flat 6, half step. 6th to flat 7, flat 6 to flat 7, whole step. Flat 7 to root, whole step. So when you're playing that, just really start remembering these half steps and how they sound. All right, think about the scale tones. So we start with the root on 1st string, 7th fret. Whole step, half step for 10th fret. Whole step for the 4th of the scale, 12th fret. Whole step for the 5th of the scale, half step for the flat 6. Whole step, flat 6, flat 7. Whole step, flat 7, root. And if you want to think of the actual note names, we got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And that's the other reason why I wanted to do A natural minor. It's just A through A with no sharps or flats. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Right? So when you're learning these, just think A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. But when you think about this compared to an A major scale, we have the flatted 3rd, flatted 6th, flatted 7. You say, what does that even mean? Well, that means normally you wouldn't have a C natural in the key of A major. You'd have a C sharp. Normally you wouldn't have an F natural. You'd have an F sharp. You wouldn't have a G natural. You'd have a G sharp. So that's what that means by flat 3rd, flat 6, flat 7. Now, these patterns, the blue pattern is just like the red pattern, just starts differently. Starts on our root notes are on, that's what I did in red. The roots are on your 5th string and 2nd string. Now notice how I've got blue on 1st string, 4th string, 6th string, but they're the exact same frettings, right? Exact same patterns, it's just on a different string. That's why I did those in blue, this in red, right? And then we only have one green one on our F sharp string because that doesn't repeat anywhere. And that would start there on 3rd fret, 3rd string. But when you think about the scale shapes, these are the same distances, right? Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Go to your other colors, it's the same thing, it just starts differently. So it's real important to know where your root notes are. You have A's 5th string, 2nd string, an A on your 3rd string, and then here on your 7th fret you have 6th, 4th, and 1st string A notes. Okay. Now, what's really fun to do, especially with this, keeping it on one string, because you can be super musical once you memorize these patterns, is, let me play you this jam track. Now this will come, if you're a member on my streaming site, this jam track will come with the lesson, and the PDF will come with the lesson too. So all my members get that. So let me show you what this sounds like of me just improvising. It's just a simple, almost sounds like a Jewel song or something. A minor, C major, G major. Right? Here we go. And I'm just going to improvise on this 1st string here. playing this, let me talk a little bit. So if you want to use your ear, right, and you don't necessarily know what are the chord tones to each one of those chords and trying to hit the chord tones, let me give you a piece of advice. If you got the scale pattern down and you hit a note that doesn't sound right, just move it up or down to the next note of the scale. Try to keep it musical, try to keep it in time and like you didn't mess up, right? Just try to slide it into the next note and try to slide it musically. And you'll find that when you're on, if it's hanging out on that chord and you hit a note that's sour, just slide it up and it sounds like that works. Okay, let me try to improvise a little bit just with this blue pattern here. Same thing. Let me get the jam track going. Blue pattern. Okay, so something like that. Now, what you'll want to do then as you're improvising with this, you'll want to start combining the closed position patterns, that's what these are called, with your individual strings, right? So you could maybe play the blue pattern, and as you get up to here, well then play it on up all the way, maybe even up an octave using the single string patterns. Or, start combining these simple patterns with the single strings. Keeping in mind too, some of these I didn't write them out all the way because I really wanted to be more simple with the patterns so that you see the shapes, you see the patterns, but it's not too much information, right? But what you can do is from open to 12th fret, that's the same as 12 to 24. Now, could I have written that out? Yeah, but you wouldn't have seen the red pattern being like the blue, like the green as much. So for me, it's more important that you see these, how it can be simplified, I guess. So anyways, guys, that's about it. Like I said, check out the site to get this PDF and the jam track. And I hope you enjoyed jamming along to A minor, a natural minor. And maybe in the future I'll do, I did write out Dorian, and maybe I'll do a few others and make a different jam track for future lessons. So I hope you enjoy this and have fun jamming, and we'll see you on the next lesson. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.